Hello, tiny bird lovers, and welcome back to the Itty Bitty Birdcast. Thank you to all those who tuned in on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for our very first episode. If you haven't seen the first episode, you can find it on our YouTube under the handle at the Itty Bitty Birdcast, or you can search for the Itty Bitty Birdcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Good Pods, Pocket Casts, and Overcast. I received a lot of positive feedback and kind words from so many incredible bird parents and, of course, friends and family on episode 1. It means the world to me that you care about this as much as I do, and it truly makes me hopeful for the future of tiny companion birds. Today, I'm going to take you all through a day in the life, week, and month, and also year of a tiny bird parent. My goal is to paint a clear picture for aspiring bird parents of what it looks like to care for a tiny but truly complex and high maintenance animal. My hope is to educate those thinking about bringing home a tiny bird, whether it be for themselves or their family or maybe their child who might be begging them for a pet bird. If you still want to bring home that bird after seeing everything that goes into it and understanding the standard of care that must be provided, then you might be the right home for that tiny feather baby. If you are unsure or have any doubts after looking into our world, I encourage you to please reconsider for the good of the bird. Now, let's dive in, starting with a day in the life of a tiny bird parent who happens to have 2 tiny companion birds. Now, this is my way of bird parenting, and it is important to understand that all bird parents have their own methods and routines. What I do is not the be-all, end-all, and is certainly not the only way to do things. What I hope my audience gets out of this is that I'm providing a specific level of care and that it's most important for the health and well-being of our tiny birds to understand the standard that needs to be met. Now, my birds are on my schedule, which means they wake up a bit later than what many would expect for a bird's wake-up time. I work in the afternoons until about 7 p.m. during the week, so I don't get up super early, and I'm also not a morning person. My birds wake up around 11 a.m., and they don't start chirping until I uncover them. Their covers are meant to provide them with complete darkness when they're sleeping. Birds are extremely sensitive to light, and if there's the tiniest bit of light, mine typically struggle to fall asleep. Some bird parents prefer to use blackout curtains in the room instead of cage covers, which is another option. It is imperative that birds get at least 12 hours of completely dark and uninterrupted sleep. This means that even the lights and sounds from a TV late at night can impact their sleep. I recommend providing a quiet and private space for your birds to sleep once it is time to put them to bed. I'm fortunate to finally have my own bird room, but if you don't have a bird room, that's okay. It just might mean rolling their cages into a different room that can be kept completely dark and silent. Once uncovered, my birds immediately start squawking and yelling for food. My birds don't scream all day though. However, they can be very loud and they are usually more vocal when they're hungry or trying to communicate something such as flock calling. Birds flock call in the wild to alert other members of their flock where they are and to help seek out their flock members. My parrotlet, Kermit, who is right over there on top of the tree stand, he does tend to flock call when he wants to know where I am or wants to get my attention. My canary has a specific squawk that we call her help call when she wants something. As mentioned in our previous episode, she can be quite bossy and rarely gives me a chance to get her food to her in time after uncovering her before she starts to use her help call. The funny part is that Kermit, my parrotlet, has learned to imitate her help call. It's a pretty pathetic attempt at the canary yell, sorry Kermit, but it is quite adorable, and I've noticed he does it when he wants attention. For example, if his flock calling isn't working, like if I'm not coming to him fast enough, he will try Ollie's help squawk or help call, and he finds that we tend to come running when Ollie makes that sound. So he's very smart. Just another example of how resourceful and smart tiny birds can be when they want or need something. Morning bird care typically takes me anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes every day. I uncover them, take out their dry food bowls, which I choose to leave in overnight. However, you don't have to do this. I empty the bowls, clean them, and then provide fresh dry food. For my birds, fresh dry food consists of a healthy seed blend. I use a specific canary one one for Ollie and a few different tiny parrot blends for Kermit, along with some healthy pellets, all mixed together with a foraging blend. Kermit eats Tops pellets and Ollie eats Harrison's, both of which are high-quality pellet brands. I prefer Tops because they are one of the only cold-pressed pellet brands on the market. Cold-pressed pellets retain more nutrients than heat-processed pellets. However, no matter what I did or tried, Ollie refused to eat the Tops, and it was more important to me that she was supplemented with extra vitamins as well as kelp for its iodine, which Harrison's also contains due to her thyroid condition. If interested in the particular seed and foraging blends that I feed to my babies, comment dry food blends and I will respond with everything I offer. We will take a deeper dive into the diet and nutrition in a future episode. Next, I remove all water bowls and baths, wash them, ensure no soap residue is left over in the cups, and provide filtered or bottled water. Sometimes there can be high levels of chlorine in the tap water, and I just like to be extra cautious. I replace the water about once a day, but sometimes change it more frequently if one of them decides to poop in the water. Not pointing fingers or anything, but it does happen sometimes. They are birds. I then assess their cages. They get full cage cleans every week. However, I often change their liners, which for my birds are just paper towels under their grates multiple times a week. It's important to put the liners under the grates. I have seen many bird parents put it over the grate and then the bird is walking in its own poop. Yes, you will have to clean the grate, but it's more important that your bird is provided with a clean and healthy space to eat and thrive. Bird poop does not have an odor, and if it does, it is typically a sign that something is wrong with your bird and is something to keep an eye on. If there's a lot of buildup and debris from food, I change the liners and also spot clean the perches with F10 veterinary disinfectant and bird safe wipes. We can dive deeper into safe cleaning supplies in a future episode, but F10 is the disinfectant that most exotic vet clinics use to clean their exam rooms and is completely bird safe, and it's my holy grail. As gross as this will sound, I also always make sure to assess any fresh bird poop in the cage every morning. Bird parents, you know what I'm talking about. We pay close attention to their poops. Changes in color and consistency of stool can be a sign of illness. Birds are extremely good at hiding illness until it is often too late. This is an adaptation they have due to being prey in the wild. They have to keep themselves safe and not appear to be vulnerable to predators. This is extremely useful in the wild, but not as useful when in captivity. Bird parents often miss the signs that something is wrong and are unable to seek medical treatment in time for their feather babies. While assessing for potential medical concerns, I also am sure to weigh my birds every morning. Weight change is one of the first signs that something is wrong internally. This is where it is extremely important to know what the healthy weight range is for your specific species of tiny bird. As mentioned in the previous episode, the weight ranges can be quite wide, so it's important that you do your research on this before bringing home a bird. Kermit is trained to step onto the kitchen scale we use to weigh them. Ollie will not go onto the scale willingly, so we put a carrier on the scale, hit the tare button, and then put her in the carrier to record her weight. After the morning bird care routine is done, I defrost a chop cube on the counter in a small container and then put it in the refrigerator before I leave for work. When I come home, I take it out and split it in half and provide them with their defrosted chop for dinner in clean bowls. When it's time for birdie dinner, I include a bird safe herb blend, unsweetened shredded coconut, fresh or freeze-dried sprouts, bird probiotics, and powdered calcium for Ollie, all mixed into the chop. I also sprinkle a flour forage blend and a powder that is used to prevent and tame inflammation in the body on top of their food. If you would like to know the exact blends and brands I use, comment chop toppers and I will share it with you. I highly recommend sprouting for your birds. Fresh sprouts are packed with nutrients and they are extremely healthy for our feather babies. I leave the chop in their cages for a few hours and take it out at bedtime, otherwise it can spoil overnight and harbor bacteria. More on how and when I prepare chop and how to sprout seeds later. During the day before and after work, I make it a point to spend quality time with the birds. Now, quality is the key word here. Out of cage time, along with any sort of bonding time, should always be viewed as quality over quantity. In a perfect world, bird parents would all love to never have to go to work or attend to any other responsibilities and just stay home with their birds all day, but we all know this isn't realistic. I do have to go to work and attend to obligations, but I always make sure that when I do get time with my birds, even if it is just an hour before work and a few hours after, I give them my full undivided attention. Quality time is not always out of cage time and snuggles. It can also look like spending time in the bird room, talking to them, singing to them. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. Da, 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 dee, da, da, dum. Da, 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 dee. 'Cause 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 reading them children's books. Yes, I do in fact have children's books just for my birds, and yes, many of them are about birds. What do you say to Bruce?
It was such a
I also make sure to provide them with plenty of enrichment every single day. When I'm not home, I play music from their speaker in the bird room, so they are never sitting in silence, and they have constant access to a bunch of different toys of different sizes, textures, and types in their cages. I often hide seeds and other treats in their foraging toys, so they have to work to find them, and it keeps their brains active. Birds in the wild have to forage for their food, and this actually keeps their minds strong and prevents boredom. Boredom can lead to destructive behaviors such as feather plucking, as well as mental health challenges such as depression and anxiety. Birds are incredibly smart and need stimulation for their brains in order to stay happy and healthy. When out of the cage, my birds have access to 3 tree stands, a birdie playground, and a window play area. The tree stands all have a variety of toys hanging from them. I also offer them foraging trays with shredded paper and toy parts where I can sprinkle more treats for them to find. Every night at bedtime, I take their fresh bowls, empty them and clean them, and then I tuck them in by covering them with their cage covers and shutting the lights. Now, on to a week in the life of a bird mom. Cage cleaning. The least glamorous part of being a bird parent, but it has to be done. My husband and I tackle this as a team. I remove the liners and roll them up and dispose of them. Then I use my dust buster to vacuum any food remnants in their trays under the liner. Then I remove the grates from their cages and he sprays them down with bird cage cleaner in our tub. They soak for 15 minutes before he scrubs them down with a brush and more cleaner. Then he hoses them off with hot water. While he does this, I start scrubbing down their perches, toys, cage bars, every crevice I can get into with a brush and F10 veterinary disinfectant. I also frequently use bird wipes on the perches. I vacuum up any food and debris on the floor, under and around the cages, and often vacuum the whole bird room multiple times a week. Once clean, I remove the trays, and my husband sprays and soaks the trays in the tub in the same manner he did with the grates. I assess which toys need replacing and if it's time to rotate toys or perches. It's important to offer your birds new toys or even change the location of the toys and perches to keep their minds stimulated. This also helps to curb hormonal nesting behaviors because birds often don't feel comfortable nesting in a space that isn't as familiar to them. I also assess if Ollie needs more nesting material, more on why I allow her to nest when nesting is typically discouraged in a future episode. My husband dries down the parts and puts fresh liners in them, and then we put the cages back together. Both cages are kept on a splat mat to try to eliminate some of the potential mess they can and will make all over the floor. Newsflash, birds love to throw their food all over the floors and walls. I often have to wipe down the walls behind their cages too. Then we clean the tub with bleach and make sure the bleach smell is nowhere near the bird room and that the bird room door is shut and the room is well vented. Come, would you like to say hello? Herman has something to say. You say, "Give me a kiss." Okay. I also sprout seeds on a bi-weekly basis. I do this by using the Easy Sprout sprouter system that can be purchased from a bunch of different bird websites as well as Amazon. You'll also need to purchase a sprouting seed blend. For tiny birds, I love the micrograin blend from China Prairie. There are instructions on the package, but basically I measure out just less than a quarter cup of seeds by using the inside of the dome lid that comes with the Easy Sprouter. This is the perfect amount for my flock of 2 because the sprouts only last 3 to 4 days in the refrigerator. I make sure the little drain-like piece is placed inside the inner vessel and then place the inner vessel in the bigger outer cup. I pour the measured amount of seeds into the inside of the inner vessel and fill it up with cold water until it more than covers the seed. Then I let it soak for 8 hours with either the dome lid or flat lid on top. The Easy Sprouter is made to allow the proper amount of airflow through the seeds while they are sprouting. After the 8 hours is up, I remove the inner vessel and pour out the water from the outer cup. Then I do a cool rinse with cool tap water on the seeds and then use 6 drops of GSE, which is grapefruit seed extract, in the outer cup. Then I place the inner vessel back in the bigger cup and fill with water just enough to cover the sprouts. The GSE cleans the food and keeps everything safe. I set a timer for 3 minutes, and once it's done soaking in the GSE, I drain the water again, and this time set the inner vessel up on its hinges so it isn't fully sitting in the outer cup. Then I place the dome lid on top, and they sprout for 12 hours. 12 hours later, I check them again and do the same process of draining, cool rinse, soak in water, and 6 drops of GSE for 3 minutes, drain, and sprout. Usually another 12 hours later after that, you will see the tails poking out of the seeds. This is the perfect time to put them in a container and put them in the refrigerator. Now they are ready to serve. After 3 to 4 days, any sprouts that haven't been eaten get thrown out. My birds get a teaspoon of sprouts in their top every day. If I forget to make sprouts, I also buy freeze-dried sprouts by China Prairie, which only need to soak in water for 5 minutes to be rehydrated and ready to serve. Freeze-dried vegetables and sprouts are better than dehydrated veggies and sprouts because the freeze-drying process actually helps to retain retain the majority of the nutrients, whereas in dehydration, you lose a lot of nutrients. Going back to enrichment, another form of enrichment that I like to offer to my birds at least once a week in the warm weather is the opportunity to go outside. This looks different for each of my birds. For Kermit, he loves to go on walks in his Celte carrier. We just received a new Celte carrier as a gift from a bird mom friend, and instead of his Celte backpack, this one sits on your shoulder so your bird can actually see you. Kermit seems so much happier in it because he can see me while we walk. You can also wear it as a crossbody or a handbag and even as a fanny pack. We go on short walks and he often talks to the wild birds he hears outside and to any neighbors we might run into. Ollie, on the other hand, does not enjoy walks because any movement in her carrier, particularly car rides, makes her extremely sick. When I bring Ollie outside, I take her out in the carrier and we sit down in one spot and soak up the sun and sounds of nature. She really seems to enjoy the feeling of the sun on her feathers and often chirps along with the wild birds. On to a month or several months in the life of a bird parent. My husband and I make giant batches of fresh vegetable chop to be kept in the freezer for the birds that last about 4 months. We use chop recipes by the company Bird Tricks, who I really admire and encourage you to look them up, but more on them later. They have a cookbook with seasonal chop recipes for birds that mimic the vegetables birds would find in the wild based on that season. I adapted their recipes to better suit my particular bird's needs and Ollie's health issues. More on that in a future episode as well. We make the chop with our food processor and freeze it in ice cube trays. Then we pop out the chop cubes and store them in freezer bags. We take one out every day to defrost and split it in half for each of them. Chop making night is often long and messy. We always have a huge mess to clean up in the kitchen afterwards, but it's worth it to make so much healthy food that will last my babies a while. All birds need fresh vegetables every single day. That is so important. Every month, I also have to take an informal inventory of everything we have in terms of cleaning supplies, fresh food, dry food, foraging blends, treats, toys, you name it. I try to stay ahead of it so I never run out of anything and then have to scramble to provide the best stuff for my birds. A year in the life of a bird parent is very important, and I can't stress this enough. Annual vet visits. I actually receive a text from my avian/exotic vet's office when they are due for their annuals as a reminder to schedule an appointment. If you're going to bring home a bird, it is so important that you find an avian or extremely experienced exotic vet first. I know many bird parents are going to tell me it can only be a certified avian vet, and I'm here to tell you why I disagree. In a perfect world, I would love for there to be plenty of avian vets to choose from. However, that just isn't the case. In the US alone, there aren't many to go around. My vet is an exotic vet. However, she trained under a very well-known, since retired avian vet and has 20 plus years of experience working with birds, which is her specialty. Given the situation, I prefer experience over the certification, but that's my personal preference. If you can find an avian vet with availability near you, that is wonderful. However, whichever avian/exotic vet you choose, do your research first. Regular vets who see domestics like dogs and cats cannot treat your bird in the way they need to be treated, and it can be detrimental to their health. Birds really should be seen at least once a year or every 6 months if you can afford it. Yes, avian/exotic vet appointments are expensive and can add up quickly when something is wrong, which is why it's even more important to monitor your bird and seek out potential early warning signs whenever you can. Try to be proactive. If you're going to bring home a bird, please take the vet visit expenses into account. If you need help finding an avian or exotic vet near you that treats birds, I recommend checking out the Find a Vet tool on the Association of Avian Veterinarians website. I will link the Find a Vet page down in the description of this episode. I'll also take a deeper dive into avian exotic vet exams in a future episode. As you can see, being a bird parent comes with a lot of effort and work on a daily, weekly, monthly, and even yearly basis. Bird care is expensive between keeping up with supplies, food, and toys, but also keeping up with the vet expenses. Bird care also requires you to give up some of your free time to be with your bird. Birds are social creatures who need human interaction when in your home. Kermit is extremely bonded with me and often seeks me out and sees me as a flock member. That's it for today's episode. So if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share this video. Check out episode 1 if you haven't already. You can find us on YouTube under the handle at the Itty Bitty Birdcast or wherever you get your podcasts from. See you in the next one. Bye, bird friends. Oh, we like the scritches. We like the scritches. It feels so good. Give a kiss. Thank you for the kisses. Thank you. Thank you for the kisses. Thank you. You have anything to say? What do you have to say? You're gonna poop. We pooped.